History of Ronde, Part 1, Dominion Park. Since the day it was founded, Montreal has remained a city of global acclaim, and in the early years of the 20th century, saw its locals treated to the same assortment of amusements found at other major centers in North America. It was June 2nd, 1906, when Canada saw its first purpose-built amusement park, Dominion Park, facing Rue Notre-Dame East. It was the vision of Harry and Mabel Dorsey, amusement entrepreneurs, that helped see it come to life and helped through the backing of the Montreal Suburban Tramway Company as a retreat and excuse to use their service. Built as Montreal's own version of Coney Island, the Boardwalk Promenade Amusement Park, with whitewashed buildings and electric illuminations, was a feat for its time. 15 acres in total, the park's central man-made lake was 225 feet by 100 feet long, with an iconic 125-foot electrical tower that dazzled with 700 light bulbs. Among its attractions was the scenic railway roller coaster, Chute the Chutes water ride, an old mill dark boat ride, the Laughing Gallery, Carousel, the House of Nonsense, and numerous others. Also among these was the Tickler, a variation on the Virginia Reel style of roller coaster, where non-rotating vehicles would slide down an inclined ramp along a zigzag course to the bottom. Admission was 10 cents, with additional costs per attraction. In all, the park cost $350,000 to construct and entertained more than 1 million visitors in its opening year, with 30,000 attending on the final day of the season alone. A year later, a similar park would open in Toronto, also financially backed by the Dorseys, known as Scarborough Beach Park. Despite a French-speaking majority in the city, all the signage and attractions were posted in English. In fact, any trace of the French language is barely evident in accounts of Dominion Park. The park also featured numerous miniature and diorama presentations, along with the live shows one would expect from entertainment of the era. Dedicated small pavilion buildings housed these. One unusual one was the Incubator, lasting only a few years from 1906 to 1908, where newborns were housed in a nursery and patrons could pay to view them. Despite current tastes for the opposite, where guests pay now to see the non-living at Halloween events, Dominion was not short of the macabre as part of its entertainment, including experiences recreating tragedies of the Jonestown flood in 1889 in Pennsylvania, San Francisco earthquake of 1906, and sinking of the Titanic. A year after its opening, the Mystic Rill Dark Ride opened in a building constructed underneath the Switchback Railway, where guests sat in rows of 3 in small boats that wandered through painted scenes along its lengthy course. While it is rumored that this was a Tunnel of Love-style attraction, it remains to be explained how the seat room for 6 helped encourage that mood. For years, the park held a monopoly on Montreal's amusement scene. Other parks sprang up in the city, more focused on gardens and event-style presentations, such as the Jardin de Merveille. Like other trolley parks of that era in their early years, Dominion focused on the attractions first, followed by landscaping, which was realized in later seasons and essentially complete by 1910. Also part of the entertainment were traveling stunt shows. Among these was the Weedix Wild West show, featuring the fearless Tom Mix, who visited the park in 1912. The fearless cowboy performed for crowds despite one legendary bad day. To start, Mix was stabbed in the jaw by a bullhorn and knocked unconscious in a bulldogging event. Undeterred, Mix demanded the damage on his face be patched up and resumed the show, taking part later in a bucking bronco event where he was knocked so severely that he was led to hospital before the event's conclusion, despite ardent protest by Mix himself. The horse act Mazzetta was housed in a building located next to the House of Nonsense at the south side of the park. On June 28, 1913, the show was being performed as normal when reportedly a horse knocked over one of the gas-fed lamps used to illuminate the indoor act. All of the structures in the park were built of wood at the time, thus the building quickly caught fire, and within an hour a large crowd had gathered to watch the Mazzetta building along with the House of Nonsense and Shipwreck of the Titanic as they were destroyed by flames. Animals housed within the buildings were safely let out, and the fire was brought under control within an hour and a half of its start with no casualties. War, however, would break out the following year and cast a dark cloud on the amusement industry globally for the next 4 years. The first season of operation during the conflict was not helped by tragedy attached to the park's 2 key attractions. The Scenic Railway debuted with the park in 1906 and had seen it become the jewel in Dominion's crown, along with the Mystic Rill Dark Ride beneath it. The roller coaster had no in-track braking, and a brakeman was necessary for each journey. Built by New York designer LaMarcus Thompson, some of the ride's unique features included a loading platform that was curved, and the ride ended with a helix enclosed in a tunnel building called Dante's Inferno, a name that would serve as an unfortunate allegory for the ride's future. The first season after the war was not helped by the emergence of a global pandemic known as the Spanish flu, just reaching its peak in Montreal in the summer of 1919. In defiance of that, the park continued operation, where in the late season on August 10th, a fire broke out on Mystic Rill. The ride lacked emergency exits or suitable lighting for its show building underneath the scenic railway, which led to riders being trapped within the structure as flames quickly engulfed it. All 7 passengers trapped within Mystic Rill perished in the fire. Afterwards, an unidentified body and a dog were also found among the ruins. The scenic railway was partially destroyed, along with the entirety of Mystic Rill in the aftermath of the fire, which was extinguished within several hours. After the fire and a devastating season, the park could thankfully put its dark period behind it. The 1920 season saw a new roller coaster open on the site where the scenic railway stood, designed by legendary coaster designer Friedrich Church. This dip-style coaster would go on to operate for only 10 seasons. The park was now situated to enjoy its best period, despite its aging attractions in a quickly evolving amusement era. A Ferris wheel and other rides were gradually introduced, but in 1923, the biggest threat emerged to the north of the city. Park Belmont, with its Cyclone roller coaster built in 1924, was drawing considerable attention with its modern thrills built by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company. The two parks would go on to compete for Montreal crowds throughout the lucrative Roaring Twenties. After the season had ended in 1929, the devastating stock market crash rendered a worldwide depression, seeing the end of numerous parks throughout North America. While Dominion Park enjoyed a busy period in the early part of the 20th century, it was plagued with more difficulties than most would see in 100 years throughout its short life. Unfortunately, it would not survive the economic challenges of the Great Depression and was forced to close its doors in 1937. Today, what was once a center of vibrant activity is now an industrial site used for storage of shipping loads on the St. Lawrence River. Small in stature and with a similar lineup of amusements found throughout other parks of the era, Montrealers' tastes had moved in a different direction and began to embrace a park offering a better reflection of the Quebecois people and their tastes. Park Belmont was about to assert its own dominion over the city.